This is why RAG-based AI search is going to take over keyword search. Stick around if you want to learn how to build a quick tweet find like this, which will outperform any keyword search tweets app finder that you could find or make, and let me explain why before we launch into the how. So if I have a search term like positive psychology, I have got back from the Exa AI search endpoint, I've got back 5 tweets. Now, none of these tweets have got the keyword term positive psychology, but all of them are about positive psychology because where the RAG and the AI come in, they know that positive psychology is far more than a specific 2-word statement. So we've got a tweet here about positivity. We've got a second tweet here, which I happen to know is a tweet from Psychology Today. So it just mentions happiness, and it is from Psychology Today, and so it therefore knows that it is a tweet about positive psychology, even though positive psychology is not actually mentioned in the text. Now, before we launch into the how-to, if you're building an app with Bubble, if you've got a business idea and you want to learn how to build it and accelerate and launch it, then click the link down in the description and join Planet No Code today. But here we go, on with the video. Let's learn how we can use the Exa Search API to basically build our own AI-powered search engine that outperforms keyword-based search. The Exa Playground gives us everything that we need to easily copy and paste the JSON code here to make an API connection between our Bubble app, which we're building with no code, through to Exa and their amazing RAG AI search engine tool. So I've got an example here. I'm saying positive psychology, and I've got a number of results. I'm then filtering it by date, and that's it. And I get these results here. And these are the results that I'm going to be passing into my Bubble app. So let's connect it all together. In Bubble, we need to go to plugins, which is here on the side, and go to the API connector. If you don't see it, you can add it through the plugin directory. And then you can see all of the different services that I've done Bubble tutorial videos on before. And we'll go right the way down to the bottom, and I'll add in Exa AI. And right, now we just got to flick between the Exa Playground and Bubble in order to work out what we need to pass between the two. So we are making a post request, because it says post here, to the Exa.ai API. So I'm going to add this in here, and I'll say search for tweets. Paste in the endpoint. Remember, it's post. Change it to action because I want to run this from within a workflow in Bubble. Let's go back to the documentation, and then we see in the header we have to authenticate to the call. That way it knows who to bill. So I'm going to go back into Bubble, and it's really important that your API key or your authentication key, you do not want to be sharing that with your users. So most of the time you should consider anything that happens in a front-end workflow is accessible to your users. But in Bubble, we can say private key in header, and that way we are indicating to our Bubble app that this is data that should not be shared with our users. Now, as of a few months ago, at least content type application JSON was set as a default value, so I'm not going to add that. I'm not sure about accept, but if we get an error, that's the first place I'm going to look. And so then we can paste in the API key into there. And then we got to take the data section. So that's everything within the single quote mark, speech mark there. Copy that. Paste it in. So we want to make our query dynamic. And so Bubble gives us the instructions. We use triangle brackets. So we'll say query. And you could name this anything you like. Notice that I'm removing the speech marks. That's because I'm going to make it gonna make it JSON safe. I'll explain that when we get to it. I've also unticked private because this is not something we want to hide from our user. In fact, it wouldn't work if we did, because we want our user, this is our user's query that we're searching for. So in order to initialize the call, which is effectively the way of testing what I've entered here, I'm going to add back in the speech marks there. I'm then going to leave the rest of this exactly as it is, but you could of course go through and make any part of this as dynamic as you like. And so now I'm going to click initialize call and see if I've made any mistakes. Normally you get an error quite quickly. If you do, This is going to take longer than a keyword search, of course, because it has got that AI component. But look, this is lovely. This has worked. We get back a list of results. We get back a score. That's going to be great for ordering them. And we get back a load of additional information, including the tweet. If you want to see what that looks like, it comes back just like this, which if we go back into the playground, will look remarkably similar to this. Whoops, I've just clicked on one of those. Let's go back. So I'm going to click save because that is teaching Bubble what format the response is coming in. And I want to pay particular attention to how Bubble has labeled this, because I'm going to want to list through my results. And Bubble has called them search for tweets results, and I think it's called them that because I've labeled this search for tweets, and then it's adding on the results because that's the list name that Exa AI is providing back for that part of the JSON response. This is perfect. So let's go back onto design, and all I've got here is some text, an input, and a button. So I'm going to add in a repeating group because I want to be able to show my results. So let's have this as a layout, make it width 100%. I'm going to say min height 0. So the content is not something that's already in my database. The content is the data type, a sort of data type associated with the AI response that was detected when I initialized. So actually I will just do search for tweets results. Okay. And then I'm going to leave it blank because I'm going to try doing this without custom states. Basically, I'm going to take the results and try and display them straight in my repeating group. And I'm not actually 100% sure if that will work. I'm going to untick number of rows, max there. And then I'm just going to throw a text label in so we can see the results coming back. I'm going to just say text. Okay, because then we're going to get a list of all of our tweets. In fact, let's do something else a little bit more dynamic here. I'm going to put in a link. And I'll say read more. It is external URL. And does the URL data come back? Yes, it does. There we go. Okay, this is looking really good. Let's connect up our workflow. So we want, when the button is clicked, to send our query over to the Exa AI search endpoint, which we set up in the Bubble API connector. And then we want to show the results on the page. So let's add in a workflow. And so first thing we'll do is, wrong key. Because I initialized it and I set it as an action, I'm going to see it in this list here. Now this is a really big list because I've got a load of plugins and other API connecting things set up. But I can either find it by typing in the search there, or I can just do, it's going to be under Exa AI search for tweets. So I'm going to go down to E, Exa AI search for tweets. I'm then going to put my input in here, which I've called enter URL here. Oh, but it's not a URL. That's from a different demo. This is going to be enter query. Notice how by changing the placeholder, it changes the internal labeling. That's not going to break the connection between, say, a workflow and this input. It just means it's really handy when it comes to relabeling it. So I'll say enter queries value. And remember, this is where I make it JSON safe. If you want to learn more about JSON safe, we've got our own videos on that. But effectively what it's doing is wrapping the whole thing in speech marks. We need that in order to not get an error with the JSON code that's being sent and being sort of brought together in the API connector. But it also ensures that any pesky bits of punctuation that could be mistaken for code are made safe when they're sent across. Basically, I've got in the habit of doing everything JSON safe and I'm sending it in JSON because it avoids a load of headaches later on. So now I want to display data, and so I'm going to say display list in repeating group. And my data source is what comes out of the API call in step 1, results. Cool, that's gone blue. That means that there is a match between the data that it's expecting and the data that it wants to display. And I'm getting that, and this is very easy to get confused on, because I'm saying here, search for tweets results. Not search for tweet, search for tweets results. Okay, because I'm going straight to the point in the data that I get back. I'm going straight to the point where I get the results. Cool. Let's go ahead and preview and see how well this runs. So let's give it another test. I'm going to put in my query here and click run. We're querying now the Exa search endpoint, and we get back our data just like this. Now, it's not as clean as I'd like it to be, but thankfully they use these lines. If anyone knows what they're technically called, please leave a comment below, to split the content. So what I'm going to do is go back into display here, and I'm going to use split by. So I'm going to say split by, then place one of those lines, and then say first item. Okay, remember, nothing is actually being saved to the database. So each time I'm running this, I'm having to run that small cost of actually querying the API. So we'll click run again. There we go, that's looking much more tidy. Now there is of course an interesting thing with the character here. Not going to cover that in this video, but we get back our list of results, and of course I could click through on here and I could go and view the original tweet for each one. Is this going to work? Yeah, there we go, we get back the original tweet from Psychology Today. So there you have it. That is how you can build an AI tool that finds tweets that I believe outperforms anything you could do with keyword search, and therefore the Twitter/X API. And if you want to learn more about building applications with no code, building them with Bubble, then click the link down in the description and join Planet No Code today.